Rain hammered the roof of the terraced house in Leeds as Marjorie Henshaw, 48, stared at the eviction notice trembling in her hands. The ink blurred under a stray tear. Her landlord had sold the building to developers, and in 30 days she'd be out her home of 2 decades reduced to rubble for luxury flats. Her husband, Tom, had died of cancer a year ago, leaving her alone with a part-time cashier job and a mountain of grief. Now, this. She sank onto the threadbare sofa, the silence of the empty house pressing in. At 48, she felt like life was closing doors faster than she could open them. The next morning, bleary-eyed, she trudged to the corner shop for milk. The street Vale Street was alive with chatter. Neighbors clustered under umbrellas, their faces tight with worry. "They're tearing it all down," said Mrs. Patel from number 12, her voice shaking. "The whole row." Marjorie's stomach knotted. This wasn't just her loss, it was everyone's. Vale Street was a patchwork of pensioners, single parents, and immigrants, all clinging to affordable rents in a city growing too expensive. The developers didn't care about the community, they saw profit in glass towers. Back home, Marjorie paced. She'd never been a fighter. Tom had been the bold one, always rallying neighbors for street cleanups or Christmas parties. But as she passed his old desk, a photo caught her eye, the two of them at a local fair, laughing. "You've got a voice, Marge," he'd said once. "Use it." She stopped pacing. Maybe she could. That evening, she knocked on doors, her palms sweaty despite the chill. "We need to talk," she told each neighbor, her Yorkshire accent thick with resolve. By 8 p.m., her cramped living room was packed. Old Mr. Jenkins perched on a stool, young Aisha from number 8, cradling her baby, and others spilling into the hall. Marjorie stood, heart pounding. "They're taking our homes," she said. "But we're not helpless. We can fight." Nods rippled through the room, though doubt lingered in their eyes. She started small. With Aisha's help, she set up a group chat. Her first foray into What's a Pond organized a petition. Knocking on doors became her routine, her sensible boots splashing through puddles as she collected signatures. "Save Vale Street," the petition read, and soon, 200 names filled the page. She sent it to the council, but the reply was curt: "Development approved." No grounds for appeal. Anger flared in her chest. This wasn't over. Marjorie dug deeper. At the library, she pored over planning laws, her reading glasses slipping down her nose. She found a loophole: the council hadn't held a proper public consultation. It was a slim chance, but it was something. She rallied the group again, this time at the community center. "We demand a hearing," she declared, her voice steadier now. The room buzzed with energy. Mr. Jenkins offered to write letters, Aisha designed flyers, and even Shy Peter from number 15 volunteered to speak. The hearing was chaos. Dozens crammed into the council chamber, Vale Street's mismatched crew, facing suited developers and stone-faced officials. Marjorie stood, notes shaking in her hands. "This isn't just about houses," she said. "It's about people, families, histories, lives. You didn't ask us. You didn't listen." Her voice cracked as she spoke of Tom, of the street that held her together when he was gone. A hush fell. Then Aisha stood, then Peter, then others, their stories weaving a tapestry of defiance. The officials shifted uncomfortably. Days later, the ruling came: the development was paused for review. A victory, but not a win. The developers fought back, plastering regeneration now posters across Leeds. Marjorie's resolve wavered. Late one night, alone, she sobbed into Tom's old jumper. "I'm not enough," she whispered. But the next morning, a knock startled her. Aisha, with a thermos of tea and a fierce grin. "You're not alone, Marge," she said. "We're in this." Reinvigorated, Marjorie pivoted. She'd read about community land trusts, groups that buy property to keep it affordable. It was ambitious, but Vale Street had grit. She contacted a charity for advice, her fingers fumbling over the laptop Tom had left behind. With their guidance, she formed the Vale Street Trust. Fundraising began. Bake sales ironic, given her hatred of ovens, car boot sales, and a crowdfunding page that Aisha blasted across social media. "Keep our homes, keep our heart," it read. Donations trickled in, 50 here, 100 there, mostly from locals who'd heard the story. The developers scoffed, but Marjorie kept pushing. She spoke at churches, pubs, even a radio station, her voice growing bolder. "We're not just saving houses," she told a DJ. "We're saving a way of life." The campaign caught fire. A university professor offered pro bono legal help. A retired architect sketched plans for affordable homes. By spring, the trust had 80,000, far from enough, but a start. The turning point came when a national newspaper ran a feature, The Widow, who took on the developers. Donations surged, hitting 250,000. Marjorie stared at the total, dumbfounded. "We might actually do this," she told the group, tears prickling. Negotiations followed, tense, exhausting, but the trust bought the row from the landlord, outbidding the developers with community cash and a council grant. Victory wasn't glamorous. The houses needed repairs, and the trust scrambled for funds. But they owned Vale Street now, rents capped forever. Marjorie became chairwoman, overseeing renovations and tenant agreements. She wasn't just a cashier anymore, she was a leader. Neighbors called her the voice of Vale Street, a title she wore with quiet pride. One sunny afternoon, a year after the eviction notice, Marjorie stood on her doorstep, watching kids play in the street. Aisha waved from her window, "Mr. Jenkins" shuffled by with a nod, and Peter blasted music from his flat. The houses weren't perfect, peeling paint lingered, but they were theirs. Marjorie smiled, feeling Tom's presence in the breeze. She'd found her voice, and with it, she'd rewritten their future. At 49, Marjorie Henshaw wasn't done. The trust eyed another street, and she enrolled in a night course on urban planning. Her pencil sharp and her dreams sharper. "Life doesn't stop at 48, she told a reporter, her eyes bright. "It's where it starts getting good."